Dr. Stone, if you will, come right on up. It's good to have you, and we applaud you for being here tonight. Again, Dr. Rachel Stone, thank you for being here. Good evening. God bless you. Good to see you. Thank you for coming. And there's a, you need it. So, Dr. Stone, good evening. Welcome to Poplar Hill Baptist Church. You're no stranger to Poplar Hill, and we're glad that you're not. And again, as you've been introduced before, we want to state it to you, you're always welcome to Poplar Hill, and we're just honored to have you tonight to share in our Wednesday wellness, and particularly on the issue of the E-SPLOST. And so if you want to give a little brief introduction of yourself, where you're from, I'm proud to say that Dr. Stone is a PK. Her dad's a pastor and came from a good church family and found a seat in the Gwinnett County School Board as a junior person. She's the youngest, I believe. And so comes with great ideas, and she, again, is just a dynamic force to be reckoned with. So if you don't mind, just say hello.
Hello, everyone. First, I want to thank you, Pastor Headd, for this invitation. I do want to give honor to God, who's the head of my life. As Pastor Headd mentioned, my father was a pastor. So I grew up in the church, raised in the church. I was raised in North Carolina, moved to Georgia for college. I went to a very small Christian college up in Northeast Georgia. And what brought me to the Metro Atlanta area was law school. So after I completed my bachelor's, which is in teacher education, I decided I wanted to impact children at the system level, because I realized a lot of the overwhelming majority of individuals making decisions about teachers, about students, had no direct classroom experience. And so that is one thing that I'm excited to bring to the board. I served as a Gwinnett County public school teacher from 2018 to 2023. I taught special education English. And as Pastor Headd mentioned, I am the youngest on the board, and I recently found out that I am the youngest elected Gwinnett County official, sitting local official. So,
Sure. So, Dr. Stone, you were a classroom teacher, decided to run for school board, and won that seat. How does it feel to come out of the classroom? I want to say that for all the teachers. How does it feel to come out of the classroom directly onto the school board to affect policy and to make a change for the people? How does that feel?
I think it's one of my biggest blessings and honors. While I am not the only former teacher on the board, I am the only former Gwinnett County public school teacher. And because it's so recent, I'm able to bring that unique perspective. I can provide an example. Right now, we're in the redistricting process. A new school is being built from E-SPLOST dollars.
Excellent.
And one of the questions that I raised as a former recent special education teacher, how does this impact students with disabilities, students who have case managers? And studies show that, and even in my experience, having that same caseload throughout a cohort, so 9th through 12th grade, it really impacted the students and building a rapport with that family and that continuity. So those are some questions that I had. Even in some of the decisions, some of my votes have reflected pay raises for our teachers.
Excellent.
There are.
Excellent.
When I was a GCPS teacher, I worked at least 2 jobs just to make ends meet. And when I had a family emergency, I worked a 3rd job. And recently, over the summer, I ran into a fellow GCPS teacher who has 14 years of teaching experience, master's level. She's working at a local grocery store just to make ends meet.
Wow.
So a lot of the votes, the decisions that I make reflects not just students, but I'm advocating for teachers on the board.
Excellent. With that being said, let's jump right into E-SPLOST.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So just as a precursor, what is E-SPLOST? And what is it that E-SPLOST actually does here in Gwinnett County?
Yes, absolutely. So E-SPLOST is an education sales tax. It is a 1 cent sales tax on all purchases. It has existed in Gwinnett County since 1997, and it is a ballot measure. So it is to my knowledge, a 6-year contract where Gwinnetians, the voters, must vote to continue that 1 cent sales tax. These dollars are sought after because even folks who are traveling and passing through Gwinnett through I-85, 316, 285, when they make a purchase, whether it's at the grocery store or getting gas, going to the mall, when they support events at the Gas South District, that 1 cent of each purchase goes towards our schools. So that is what E-SPLOST is. It is not a property tax. So it is not tied to property taxes, and I'll get more into that later. But what E-SPLOST funds is capital projects. And so capital projects are new constructions. So in District 1, Archer High School just got a new addition, so more classrooms, so not a brand new school, but more classrooms built. Harbins Elementary also has had an opportunity to expand. And then we have a new middle school being built. It's set to open in August of 2026, this upcoming school year. Mm-hmm. So not just expanding, because in Gwinnett County, we have an overcrowding issue, while neighboring districts might be experiencing under-enrollment or declining in enrollment, we are experiencing overcrowding. So that is one way in which SPLOST dollars are used. Mm-hmm. It is also used to update and purchase new school buses. So some of our school buses are old and they need to be replaced and updated. Also, some of our school buses have backup cameras. I would imagine that is very convenient for a bus driver to have backup cameras. Along the same lines of safety, weapons detections, not the school resource officer, because that's personnel, property tax, but the police response vehicle itself is paid for through SPLOST dollars.
Excellent.
So safety, security, building new buildings, classrooms, HVAC. You think about heating and air conditioning for our students. Recently, and I brought this up at our recent board meeting a few weeks ago, we just passed several consent agenda items, and some of them were related to modifying and updating the HVAC, the heating and air conditioning for our students. Carpeting, that is what E-SPLOST dollars are paid for. The lighting. So all the things, when you think about what makes, from the moment a child, a student, enters, leaves their home, gets on a bus, if they ride a bus, goes to a school building and comes back home, that is what E-SPLOST funds. Absent personnel, which we can talk about later because that's property taxes. So E-SPLOST is all of the capital, the physical building, also textbooks, curriculum, PE gear. So all the things that our students experience inside of the building.
Excellent, thank you. One of the things that I value and I really like is that the E-SPLOST is just a penny. And can I say it this way, on every transaction. So if you get a receipt, you get a penny with that receipt that goes to the school board.
That is correct.
To a school. And can you give us a number, how much has been raised in revenue from the past E-SPLOST, if you will?
Yes, so that's a really good question. And it's also posted on the website.
Yes.
So I highly recommend that folks go to the capital plan redistricting, the district, in conversations that I've had with my colleagues. And when I say colleagues, there are 4 other board members, and then our superintendent or interim superintendent. We are working together, not because audience, they are working together to make this process as transparent as possible. And so all of that information is on the website.
Okay. Well, we can catch it on the website. Is there a dollar amount that we're trying to accumulate for these schools that need improvement, or adding new schools or buildings? I know there are several schools that have trailers.
Yes.
that we're trying to get rid of because trailers don't have security. Trailers don't have adequate sidewalks sometimes to get into the building from the school building. They don't have restrooms.
Running water.
They don't have running water, and the story just goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And so this E-SPLOST is very important for the growth that we are seeing in the Gwinnett County school system.
Yes, and in preparation for this, I pulled up some notes here, again, from the website.
Mm-hmm.
As it relates to overcrowding, there are plans for a new centrally located career technical education high school facility. There are school additions, so I mentioned Archer High School and Carbons Elementary have had an opportunity to benefit from SPLOST through new additions. Arcado Elementary School, Head Elementary, Starling Elementary, Tripp Elementary, Bay Creek Middle, Brookwood High School, Grayson High School, which, again, our schools are very, very large, and most of these schools are located in District 1. When we look at overcrowding, most of the overcrowding is taking place in the Grayson clusters and the Decula clusters. So, Pastor Headd, you were mentioning around the trailers. There's an elementary school, and I've mentioned this, in the Decula cluster, 17 trailers. And so the plan is to get these students into the main building because it is a safety issue. We have several safety concerns, which I won't get into. But, I mean, if you can imagine trailers, safety concerns, again, no running water, students are losing instructional time because it takes at least 20 minutes just to go to the restroom.
Good point. So, on an average, do you know how many people actually travel through Gwinnett County that stop and do business? Because I think that's another thing that we have to understand, that when we talk about E-SPLOST, it's also travelers from outside of our county that come through. They may get gas, stop and get a bag of potato chips at QT. They may go to the doctor and spend money there, but only 1 penny per transaction, but that's enough to build school buildings.
Yes, only 1 penny per transaction. And if you, like, for example, I was in traffic coming here on Interstate I-85 and all the cars, right? So you think about when people are passing through Gwinnett County through I-85, whether they are purchasing gas, whether they're going to the grocery stores, whether they are attending events, as I mentioned, like at the Gas South District. 1 cent of each purchase goes towards our schools. And it's not just Gwinnett County that is impacted. It's also Beaufort, which we are in Beaufort right now. So when you look at your ballot.
Go Wolves.
You will see.
I'm sorry. Beaufort Wolves, all right.
Yeah, so when you look at your ballot, you will see for Gwinnett and then for Beaufort as well.
Very good. So Beaufort does get a percentage of everything that Gwinnett County gets, just for the record.
Yes, that is correct. And it's to my understanding that there are some students who live in Gwinnett County, but they are zoned for Beaufort.
Excellent. Now, there are people in the audience or online. If you have a question, just jump in. It's kind of informal. And again, we're thankful for Dr. Rachel Stone being here to share about the E-SPLOST and the Gwinnett County school system. So if you're good with the E-SPLOST and you got some other questions, feel free to raise those questions. If not, we'll keep talking. So the question, Don, you have something? Can you use the microphone, sir?
I was going to say that those that can't check the website, E-SPLOST will actually generate $1.4 to $1.5 billion over the next 5 years.
1.41.
1.4 to 1.5
okay,
billion dollars.
Okay, all right. Billion with
a B.
Really? Well, we need E-SPLOST, don't we?
It is, as a board member, I cannot sway voters on how to vote, but please know that these resources go directly into the classroom. I think it might be a good time to discuss what E-SPLOST is not.
Yes, right. I think that was my next question, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
And it takes pressure off of the property tax. So
yes.
We need to know that as well.
So when you think about how schools are funded at the local level, you have sales taxes and you have property taxes. Sales taxes is E-SPLOST. This is those capital projects, building new schools, the safety security measures. When you look at property taxes, that is the general fund. And while some capital projects can be paid for from the general fund, we are very restricted with the general fund. That is how we pay our teachers and staff. So we really want to seek after the sales tax dollars so that we don't have to go into the general fund. The general fund is where our property taxes come from. And there's something called the millage rate, and school districts have the option to raise and lower it. This board, me and my colleagues, in August, we were able to lower that millage rate by giving property taxes relief back in August by 0.3 of a mil. So we've been able to provide property tax relief, and that is one of the things that we've been super excited about championing, that I don't know gets a lot of press or PR, but please know that we did lower your property taxes. Folks have been talking about House Bill 581, which is also a ballot measure.
Mm-hmm.
This is, again, tied to property taxes, not tied to SPLOST. So the House Bill 581, in which I want to address, is or was a ballot measure on the November 2024 ballot. And what it did was it provided local governments, so not just school districts, but you think about your cities, like City of Lawrenceville, City of Beaufort. It allowed local governments to place a cap on whether they could raise taxes. And most school districts opted out to remove that cap. I had some concerns. I can't speak to my colleagues, but I had some concerns with threats of loss in federal funding. So that is another way in which school districts are funded, and that's more supplemental. That's meant to address students who are with the most critical needs, students with disabilities, economically disadvantaged. So my point here is, when you think about E-SPLOST, it is nowhere not related to property taxes. And we desire these types of dollars because it does not impact our property taxpayers.
Not at all.
Not
Well,
for
let me
property
say it
taxes.
another way. It actually tends to lower the need for more property taxes. Hence, you can lower the millage rate in order to give some relief to the taxpayer, property tax anyway.
I would argue yes, and that's one of the things that we were, when we looked at the budget in August, we were able to provide. We intended, the original plan was to lower the millage rate 0.2 of a mil. We went back with the district. The district ran the numbers. The district said, oh, we can lower it another 0.1 of a mil and provide taxpayers with even more relief.
Excellent. That's terrific. Well, thank you for that. Do I have any questions from the audience? Thank you all for being here. Yes. Would you use the microphone, sir? Thank you.
Make it clear that it's not the 1 cent per transaction, 1 cent per dollar. If somebody have a $50 spend, he have to pay for 50 cents. The transaction. A transaction, somebody spent $50, the tax gonna be on 50 cents.
On 50 cents.
Yeah, it's going to be 1 cent per dollar.
Okay, if that's, okay. Is that a statement? Is that a question?
Yeah, if you can clarify that.
Okay, all right. Dr. Stone, can you clarify that?
That
Or
is
do you
a
need me
re-
to do it?
That is a really good question.
Yes. I think it's on the transaction. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm thinking it's on 1 cent on transaction. So if I buy a stick of gum, there's a penny that goes on that stick of gum, that receipt. On that paper receipt, there's a 1 cent tax for the splash. Not on the $50. So where you find the 50? I mean, we can have a 1 cent. Now, if you do a percentage on it, that's a different point, 0.01%. That would be a percentage, but it's actually 1 penny per transaction. Yeah.
That's what the website is.
Right, on any transaction, right. But again, that's amazing that we could raise $1.5 billion.
And I think that is one of the questions
Well, yeah, that's again one of the reasons why we're here. I want to make sure we clarify that we're not percentagely raising taxes on what you spend, because that would be additional. I think if you 0.01% on 50, you would have 5 cents rather than having just 1 penny. So if we have the E-SPLOST, it's 1 cent per transaction. Okay, so if you get a receipt, your receipt, no matter how much you spend, it's going to have 1 penny transaction. It's just 1 cent, right?
I think that's a good question to bring up to the district, and I've actually written that down.
Well, okay, all right. But my understanding is from my research, it's 1 cent per transaction. Yeah. So we can check it to see. If somebody got the computer, they can actually pull it up and take a look at it. But again, even at that level, 1 cent per transaction is not a burden. And the process, the whole process, it just goes back to the county to figure out how much that 1 cent transaction is, put it over in the building program for our students, and we're good to go.
Yes, and one thing I will add is with the 1 cent sales tax, this is not an additional tax. This is a continuation of an existing tax that has existed in Gwinnett County since 1997. So it is not an additional tax. That's one thing I want people to take away from this.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Stone, how often does this E-SPLOST come up? We've had it before. How often does it come up where we have to vote on it again?
So to my knowledge, the ballot measure expires every 6 to 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
So if SPLOST is passed in 2026, it will be up for renewal, I believe, in 2031.
Classroom size. Do you have any idea of what our average classroom size? What's the ideal classroom size right now? And what are we faced with now to make sure that you have trailers, to make sure that we have adequate classrooms per student?
So I believe an adequate class size, and that is the question, right? If memory serves me correctly, the state says 25, so class of 25. Mm-hmm. However, I will say when I was a GCPS teacher, again from 2018 to 2023, my classes as an English teacher were north of 35 to 40 kids. And as a special education teacher in the general curriculum, so I was a co-teacher, our students were on track for a regular high school diploma with accommodations in place, so maybe 2 teachers, a paraprofessional. So oftentimes we split the class because there were upwards of, you think 35 to 40 11th graders in a single classroom.
Quite a bit. Question, question in the audience. Deacon Brooks, would you use the microphone? Thank you.
I like your voter stick. You voted.
Yes, I did. Thank you today. Is E-SPLOST a part of the affiliated with the program that underwrites kids going to private school if they're eligible, if they qualify for it, or does that even exist?
So whether E-SPLOST dollars would go towards private schools?
Underwriting students going in public schools going to private schools, do they fund that in any way?
Not to my knowledge. It is to my understanding, again, I can go back and confirm with the district, but it is to my understanding that this is only impacting Gwinnett County public schools.
Buildings, primarily. Buildings, equipment.
Buildings, equipment, safety, security, the vehicles.
Is there such a program that you're aware of that will underwrite kids transferring to public from public to private schools if they meet certain criteria?
I think there was an initiative started that actually gave what is it? Let the dollar follow the child is what you may be referring to, where whatever dollars that child had in the state could go with them to a private school. I'm not sure where the initiative went or how it even manifested today, but I knew it started up at a couple of years ago, and because I'm not sure if it's still going on or not, whether it's still happening. I'm thinking it hasn't. I think it died. It didn't have the traction that it was looking for.
Yeah, but because I remember it being in play at one time that it actually
Right.
existed. Now it may not anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank
How
you.
long ago?
I'm thinking pre-COVID, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was pre-COVID. Maybe it did come back after COVID, as a matter of fact, for a few minutes because of the fear of being in the classroom, that it may have kind of surfaced around that time as well. Again, I'm not sure, but there was an initiative started in Gwinnett County that the dollars would follow the child wherever school they wanted to go to. And it could have been still in public school, but there was an initiative that was asking for the dollars to follow the child based on where the parent wanted them to go. I don't see that ever taking place, though, Deacon Brooks. It just seems to me that it would be too difficult to track.
When I did some, I was unaware very much about each class.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, when I did some research, I did run across that in the same, somewhat familiar.
Sure. That's a good point to check. Absolutely. Don, you had something?
Yeah, so I was able to look that up, see how it works. So it's for every dollar that you spend, it generates a 1 penny towards that. So it's not per transaction, it's per dollar. So if you're spending $100, an additional dollar gets added on to that. So that's how.
It's a percentage. A dollar. It's 0.1%.
Yeah, 1 cent for every dollar.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay,
not
good point.
transaction, but dollar.
Okay. Good. But per 100. Was it per dollar? Just period.
Just per dollar.
Okay.
Period. So if you're spending $5, it's 5.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thanks, Saeed. I appreciate that. Good point. I'm corrected. Yes, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Say it again. Okay. Thank you so much. Well, good. Good clarification. That's what we're here for. I was thinking under just transaction. Good. Thank you. Okay. But still, is it still worth doing? Should be per dollar, right? Okay.
Yeah. So since I'm not on the board, I can give my opinion.
Sure.
I'm of the opinion that, yeah, it does work. It does make sense. The reason to oppose it are, I think, slightly different, and that needs to be addressed in a separate conversation.
Sure.
But since this has been in place since '97, it has worked. It should continue to work, and I would, in my personal capacity, suggest to vote yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Appreciate your advocacy.
Any comments? We have two educators. Any comments from the education field? Yes, come right on.
Hi, Dr. Stone. Nice to meet you.
And nice to meet
I'm
you.
a teacher at Gwinnett County. I work at Walnut Grove Elementary School.
Okay.
And my question to you is, who within the school decides how this money and what this money is spent upon? Also, how can administrators ensure that teachers have a voice as to which resources this money is spent on?
Yes. So
Good point. Very good question.
Yes, a very good question. So to answer your question, it is the superintendent, or right now the interim superintendent. So the board, one of our roles is to hire a superintendent, but also to hold accountable. But there is a power line, if I should say. So the superintendent can cross that line, but the board cannot. So the dynamics, and here's how I always explain it. Think about, so you mentioned a school principal, right? School principal hires a coach, tells the coach under the condition, I want this football team, to win 80% of games, right? The principal is not going to tell the coach which plays to run, which students to put on the team, right? But at the end of the season, the principal's going to come back and say, hey, did our team win 80% of games? and that is the board dynamic. So in this scenario, the board is the principal, the superintendent is the coach. So to your question, who decides this? It's the superintendent and his staff. So they are, and this is why I'm always referring back to the district, because they are the experts. This is their 9-to-5 job. Serving on the school board is part-time, right? So we rely heavily, and that's not the only reason why, but we rely heavily on the experts. But to your other question on how a teacher can help bring that voice, how students can bring that voice, it starts with meeting with your school board member. So one of the things I've been working on is listening sessions. So right now we're in a redistricting process because a new school was built per E-SPLOST dollars, right? So I'm listening to stakeholders, and I can take that feedback and say, hey, superintendent, I'm hearing from stakeholders X, Y, and Z. What is your plan to address X, Y, and Z? Another thing that we've been able to do as a board with my colleagues, so the 4 of us, is we created for the very first time in Gwinnett County Public School history, we created committees. So another part of our job is to create policy. That's our lever, to create a policy, and then for the district, the superintendent, and it's in collaboration with the district because, again, they're the experts. So it's a partnership, it's a team effort. So they're creating procedures that then trickle down to the local school level. So going back to your question, so we created a policy committee, and there are teachers who serve on that committee, and out of that committee, we've been able to champion a policy for our multilingual learners. And the next thing that we're going to champion, I don't know if this is premature, but one of the things that we're going to champion in the future is the budget. And it is such, like, this committee it is so beautiful. It's a 1 year, so each board member had the opportunity to nominate 2 people. I nominated 2 teachers because, again, I'm always going to raise my hand for the teachers. And so each board member had an opportunity to nominate 2 individuals. We even have a student on the committee to bring that voice to the decision process. So it really does start with the board and reaching out to your board representative.
You've only been on the board for a short while, Dr. Stone. My question is, how well do people feel, how comfortable do people feel for making suggestions about what they need at their particular schools?
So I hear a mixture, and I can also speak to my experience. As a GCPS teacher, I would say it depends because I felt very supported by my admin. So for example, I went to my admin because I wanted my caseload, I wanted them to follow me every single year because I needed to see my caseload for administrative all the paperwork that goes with drafting IEPs and meeting with families and all the things. And she supported me. I wanted to create a alternative 12th grade language arts course because our kids were not connecting with the British literature. They wanted to see themselves in the literature. I had the support of my admin, and we created a multicultural literature and composition course, right? But I feel that is not every, and the reason I believe that this is not everyone's experience because I hear from stakeholders that and I've been very transparent about this, that there is a real fear of retaliation, and that is something that I hope, and I've had conversations with my colleagues that I hope that we can completely alleviate it, because I feel that teachers, students should feel empowered to be a part of the decision-making process. And when they look at policy, so going back to the policy committee, that they can see themselves represented in the decisions that were made from the local school building level all the way up to the board.
Excellent. Any other questions? And again, I think one of the things that is imperative is that we make parents and teachers and the entire Gwinnett County school system work flawlessly by inviting more dialogue and more conversation and creating ideas from, can I say, the grassroots up, so that we can all benefit from I think, the great minds that we have working here in the Gwinnett County School District. I think it's important that we capture all those thoughts and implement them into our fiber, if you will. So, again, we are thankful that you're here sharing with us tonight here at Poplar Hill. And I can say from our online Zoom audience as well as the in-house audience that we appreciate you being here tonight. Any other questions from the floor or from the Zoom audience?
Good afternoon. I have a slight question. I just want to know what would happen if we didn't have this.
E-SPLOST.
If we didn't have E-SPLOST?
Oh, good question.
That is a very good question. And
Can I interject?
Yes.
That'll be a $984 million question. Okay, go right ahead.
It is actually one that keeps me up at night between this E-SPLOST and I will say, as an aside, I won't say that. I'll say that later. But I do feel that I do know that there are some campaigns out there to not support E-SPLOST, which I'm trying to say this as a board member and like my community member hat. But to your question, this is something that keeps me up at night. Literally keeps me up at night. I think about all of the resources for our kids. I think about our children who are in these trailers and they are vulnerable. And I think about all the things that are happening in the world and what we can do to be more proactive so that our students are safe, because they deserve, students and teachers and staff, because they deserve to come back home the same way or in a better condition than when they left. Mm-hmm. Alive, well, safe, all the things. But what concerns me is, and there has been a narrative, and even the district has stated, there could be an increase in property taxes. Because again, when you think about local, how schools are funded, schools rely on local property taxes by 70%. So 70% of how school districts are funded comes from local tax dollars. Mm-hmm. And in Gwinnett County, we have our sales tax and we have our property taxes. We get about 20% from the state, and then the rest is either supplemental from the federal government. So it is a concern that legitimately keeps me up at night.
As Dr. Stone has stated earlier, it improves learning environments, classrooms in the school, modern technology, security upgrades, as well as transportation safety. So those SPLOST dollars go directly to those elements of our environment for our kids. And again, one of the things that I'm interested in is getting the kids out of the trailers, if you will. I think everybody needs to be able to sit in a classroom and have a good environment to learn in. But again, if you don't do the SPLOST, then the property taxes are going to have to go up. You got to get the funds from somewhere, because in order to sustain the growth that we're experiencing in the county, we do have to have the funds coming from someplace. Ebony, go right ahead. Come right on and ask your question. Good evening.
So I am a parent of a child that's in the Lanier cluster, and as you probably already know, it is growing leaps and bounds with all of the apartments that are coming up around in that area. Classroom sizes continue to increase. I often ask the school, how do we determine what is the max of amount of students that are going to be in those classes? As a parent with a child with a learning disability, a lot of times that's concerning, because I feel like she is just a number in that classroom, but we still have probably about 2 additional apartment buildings that have not opened up. We probably have seen about 3 or 4 large apartment complexes that have just come in within a 3 to 4 mile area within the school that my child attends. So as I hear about classes or schools expanding with mobile classrooms outside of that, one, I have a lot of questions, but one, does the school system look at what is the max amount that there is for kids to attend a certain school? Because again, as we've seen in the Sugar Hill area, we probably have had 6 apartment building complexes come up within the last 2 to 3 years. And so the school that my daughter attends, it's exploding.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is, how is the money allocated for what decisions are made for those schools? I think my daughter started out with maybe 24 kids. Now there is about 29 kids in her classroom. And so where is the limit? And then how do we know where the funds are allocated? Is it allocated for just this school? Or is it allocated for other schools? How is that determined? Because that is concerning for a parent.
Yeah, so thank you so much for your questions. I will say, to your question around class sizes, so Gwinnett County Public Schools operates in something called a strategic waiver system. Mm-hmm. And so we are able to opt out of the state's cap on class sizes. And with that, we must show that it's going to show academic achievement. Again, that is something that predates the current governance team. So when I mention current governance team, the 5 board members and our interim superintendent, our team changes every 2 years. So again, this is why elections are important. And also when we're looking at a superintendent, because it is the superintendent who makes those recommendations and those decisions to even enter a contract with the Georgia Department of Education to waive class sizes. Superintendent decision made and approved by the board, right? So a previous board before my tenure. So to answer your question, there is no cap on our class sizes. Now, what I will say, yesterday, I'm not in the Lanier. One of my colleagues has Lanier, but I will say, yesterday I was at a redistricting because it's adjacent to this conversation that we're having. Schools are looking at, when addressing overcrowding, it is my understanding that our interim superintendent and the staff, they're looking at not necessarily class sizes, but building capacity. So for example, Alcova Elementary, which I mentioned, the elementary school in my district that has 17 trailers, it is 309 students over capacity. So when they're looking at addressing overcrowding, it is my understanding they're not necessarily looking at class sizes, because even as we are looking to fill the new Mary Kay Murphy Middle School, the new middle school that's being built, my understanding is not going to impact class sizes because the teachers are following the kids, right? So my understanding is they're looking at it holistically in like the building, getting the kids out of the trailers so that we have enough kids at capacity in a single building. So in short, we do not have that cap on class sizes. It doesn't exist for Gwinnett because we operate under a strategic waiver system. And this is actually something that I campaigned on and I wanted to address. This is also another reason why it's important to engage with board members, because your board member can ask those hard questions because they represent you, right? They can ask those hard questions, but then also just know those decisions are being created by the superintendent for board approval. So that's kind of how that relationship works. And to your question around...
So can I just add? So I'm assuming this is based on evidence-based practice, that we're making these decisions, that class size is not something that matters, but there is no deviation from the learning based on class size. Is that correct? Is that what we're saying? Or is that what the board is saying?
So the district is saying, in my understanding, the goal right now is to get students out of trailers and get our the main buildings at capacity or under capacity, because right now we're over capacity. I think yesterday, Grayson High School is like 700 kids over capacity. So the goal right now is, and I asked this same question too, because I'm thinking, okay, we have a new middle school, right? That should impact class sizes. But when you think about it, it is my understanding that the conversation I've had with the district is when kids move, teachers and staff move, because teachers and staff, human resource, right, is funded by the kid. So each kid, I don't want to say is the FTE. So I have to go back and look at the exact FTE count. So based on how many kids are in a classroom, that helps fund the one teacher's salary. So when kids are moving to a new school building, the teachers are following. So I'm not optimistic that this entire plan to address overcrowding by prioritizing getting kids out of trailers is going to really impact class sizes.
Let me throw another caveat in because I think one of the things that we do want to watch is the performance of the students. I mean, how the children are being educated, whether we're meeting the standards or not, on a regular basis. I think that's one of the criteria for the superintendent, that they have the accountability where the children are learning above where they should be, no matter the school size, no matter the classroom size. Yeah, they still are getting the proper education that we want them to have. Does that contribute to some of that decision making? So back when I was in school, one of my college professors said the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So if there's a problem and we can address that problem, then we know we can put some energy towards solving the problems in that particular school. Am I correct in saying that?
So I will say, with the strategic waiver system, where we are, in the contract with the state to remove the cap on class sizes so that our class sizes can exceed the state requirement, with that, if we are going to waive the class sizes, then we must show academic achievement. Now, there are other parts of the strategic waiver system that I support. Like, for example, it allows a engineer, so a veteran engineer, 20 plus years of experience, to come into our schools and teach algebra. So there are some parts that are beneficial to our students, and I resonate with you. I have some concerns, still have some concerns around the class sizes, especially for our students with disabilities, and we're thinking about the students with disabilities who are factored into our graduation rates.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the team taught setting and the resource setting, and the resource setting is ideally supposed to be capped at 15, but sometimes it's not. It's 20 plus, and that is researched, evidence-based. So those are some concerns that I have as well.
Excellent. Yes, DJ. Mm-hmm. Sure. Mm-hmm. I totally agree. DJ, one of the things that I hope that we would gain from this is informed congregation, hopefully. One of the things I want to make sure that we do at Poplar Hill is stay informed so that we can make good and adequate decisions based on our lives and the money we spend, our schools, our children, the resources that are available to us. And let me say, as you stated, the accessibility that we have to our elected officials, our school board members, and I think that's imperative. If you don't have access to where the decisions are made, then you don't have access. And so my hope is that we'll continue these kind of engagements on a regular basis so that we can stay informed. As I started out with Hosea 6 and 8, our people perish for a lack of knowledge, and God no longer calls us to be priests because we don't have the information that is readily available for us to make adequate decisions that not only physical but also spiritual as well. And I think raising our children is a spiritual, personally from the church, a spiritual responsibility. So we have to engage in every level of the community to bring the information to our members so they can. And Dr. Stone, I'm excited to, again, remind us that you are a pastor's kid. You grew up in the church, so there's a heart for what you are doing that goes beyond just sitting on the board. So thank you for that.
Oh, of course. Thank you.
And again, one of the things that we must continue to do is stay engaged. And again, for you coming, just know that you have our support here at Poplar Hill for whatever mandates you try to put out there for the good of our kids. We will support that. Now, and last point, we will be in a superintendent search here pretty soon. Yes. And so one of the things that I'm going to continue to suggest to the board is that let's let the board, with its knowledge of where we are trying to achieve, be the guiding light for us selecting a superintendent for our next 10-year superintendent. One of the things we brought up last night, we may want to release the 2-year program where you got 2-year contract, give him a contract that's going to be 5 to 6 years long, so he's not worried about where he's going to end up. And by the time he implements he or she implements what's going to take place in the school district, they won't be so afraid of losing their job in 2 years that they cannot make changes and challenge themselves as well as the district to make changes that are going to support the children's education. And I don't think you can get good test scores or good performance profiles readings in 2 years. I just don't think it's possible. But that's something you all have to decide. So if you, from the pastor, consider taking back a tenure that's longer than 2 years. I wouldn't take a job for 2 years. Uproot my family, bring my family to an area, and I know I could be gone in 2 years. That's not fair to my family. So, just something for you all to consider. And so I'll leave you with a parting word.
Yes, and I appreciate that feedback. One of the things, and you mentioned we are in the middle of a superintendent search, and we've worked really hard to be transparent around this process. And for the first time, there are a lot of firsts, right,
Yes.
with this board, and I'm super excited. We held community engagement sessions across the district, invited folks to come into it was located in a school, so mine took place at Grayson High School. It's an excellent turnout. We had our firm come in. They provide a very brief presentation of what is the role of the superintendent. They broke out folks into focus groups, and it was just a dialogue. And they are using that feedback to build a candidate profile. So they interviewed each board member. Then they're using the focus groups. They're going to use that information to build a candidate profile and then create a rubric and to help look for our next leader. So I am super excited. And if there's one thing, so we're talking about academic achievement, one thing, if you don't remember anything else that I say, so there's been some discussion around academic achievement of our students, and that is a top priority. But when you're thinking about E-SPLOST, think about the buses our students are riding on. Think about the actual school buildings, the heating and air conditioning, the carpeting, the lighting, the physical structures, the adding new additions to create more classrooms, creating more space, the safety and security response vehicles, E-SPLOST. When you enter a school building, there's a device where people must insert their driver's license that is paid for by E-SPLOST. There's a new security system where it's windows and very hard to penetrate E-SPLOST weapons detectors. So when you're thinking about E-SPLOST, these are all the things that go into our classes that support teaching and learning. So I am super excited, super honored for this opportunity, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming.
And keep me in your prayers.
Yeah, we certainly will. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for being here with us tonight on Wellness Wednesday. One of the things, again, that we want to make sure that we continue to support is the knowledge, the wisdom that comes with that knowledge, as well as the involvement to make our community better. Thank you for being with us again, Dr. Stone. And again, for you that are with us tonight, you've been with Poplar Hill Baptist Church, a Christ-centered church where love is the greatest. Thank you all very much, and have a blessed night. Good night. Good night.
Oh, thank you.
Didn't mean to leave.
No, because I had a conversation with Reverend Washington. He said, well, these are official school board heads. You know, you can talk like a community member, not, you know, as a school board member. Oh, I'm just speaking as a community member.
Good to know.
I did.
That was my job.
Yeah.
So you could-
You're a great conversationist.
Just trying to
And you know, only God knows what the future holds, and I just